Do you hear me? Oh, yes, the system is working. It's always the greatest question with everything IT related to get actually the presentation side working. So, first, warm welcome to the Atlassian in Baltics 2019 event, which is the first English language event we are hosting. And we counted that we've had like 5 smaller events earlier, which were in Estonian, and which were in very large part driven by users. It started very kind of slowly, and I recall that on the latest events we had user teams, like I think it was from Ministry of Finance IT, so there was like 5 persons on stage in color coordinated t-shirts and everything, and well-rehearsed choreography of presentation. So the user side has been really growing through the 3 years. This event is named Atlassian in Baltics. Do we have anybody who is from Latvia or Lithuania here? Okay, we have 1. Okay, so we can truly confirm this is a Baltic event. Somebody has come from outside of Estonia. I hope this will be getting bigger in this way. Who of you is already using Atlassian products? Probably everybody? Yeah, majority. Who is from Gold Partner or something to that level? Nobody? Trinidad, I think, can be showing hands very highly. Yeah, okay, there are some people. You should not be very shy, because unlike the previous events, this time we have tried to get more on the vendor side to be present. And I asked that what's the backstory of today's presentations, and Kaur told me that it's the plugins we have been most using in our projects, or which have been also most up in the past events. So we have brought in the people who are making the tools you want to use. So this is the place and time to ask questions. And because all of the people who are going to talk are not the salesmen, but do know what they are selling here. Do we have any technicalities to announce? Probably not. So we started a couple of minutes late, so we should start going to the first presentation. And while thinking about presentations, then do remember that we have a coffee break in the middle, which is like 1 hour coffee break, which is especially meant for networking. So do consider the presentations as invitation to talk. The vendors have tables. You're going to see the guys who are talking on stage. So go and ask them questions also during the breaks. But okay, so let's move on with Giulio from Atlassian, and he's the solutions engineer, like also guys from Trinidad Weissman. So asking technical questions after the presentation is completely okay, going to deepness. He will be talking a bit about more on the vision side and future, but do not limit your questions with that side. Yes, the hardest part of IT seems to be working. Yes, and we do have picture.
Good morning, everybody. All right, there is somebody from outside Estonia. So I work as a solution engineer at Atlassian, which in our language, it means somebody that works with customers, enterprise customers, or mainly large customers, but not only. to give some support on how to use our tools, how to put them together, what's the best practice around that. So I work with our customer directly and also work to support our partners in EMEA. And today, so we are going to talk around ITSM. And why ITSM? Because we see a lot of opportunity. Atlassian sees a lot of opportunity in that field. Atlassian comes from the background where we are the leader in agile software. So all the software to make for agile teams. And we've seen since quite some, many years that in the IT space there is a good opportunity. So we moved to that space, first with Jira Service Desk, and then we started putting other tools around that. Just recently, last year, you may have noticed we bought a company which is called OpsGenie for all the alerting, management of alerts around incident management. And so little by little, that's a space where we are moving. And that's a space where we actually see that there are some challenges because of the way that IT teams have been used to work with traditional applications. And there are some challenges with that approach. And we come with the background that we developed during the years on the agile teams. And so what we bring, which is different, which is a little bit more special, is our agile approach. So I'm going to talk about around that a little bit. And then I will present some customers. I'm not going to go to spend too much time on that, but just to give an idea of some customers that use our tools to implement this kind of approach, and they were quite successful at that. So first of all, Atlassian is really all about teams, and that from the NASDAQ stock exchange symbol. And one of our motto is that we do software to unleash the power of every team. So the idea is really, and that's where Jira software is coming from. Really give a tool where people can organize, can work the way they want, and have the tool adapt to the way they work. The tool comes with some best practices, and is not really the best practice of Atlassian, it's the best practices of a Scrum, of the Agile approach. But then within that framework, when I go and talk with customer, everyone is implementing the Scrum or Kanban or the Agile approach in general, or even outside of Agile in their own way. And the tools allow for that. So the workflow is customizable, the custom fields and everything else really allows you to work in that way. Just to give a little overview, that's our customer base. And so you can see that it's working pretty well. Just the beginning of 2019, we went over the 138,000 customers. And in there, you will find every kind of customer. There are small customer, medium, very, very large ones. So that's another good point that we face when we work with our customer. We face different kind of approaches, different kinds of problems. And so we try to provide a tool that can fit for everybody. And the way of doing that is providing a tool that is very flexible, actually not a tool, a set of tools that are very flexible and that can be extended with all the marketplace. So it's really a modular approach. You get what you need. You want something else, you can add marketplace add-ons. And some of our most well-known ones are over here. They will come here and talk. So it's an approach that works. So I said large customers, 2/3 of the Fortune 500s, 80% of Fortune 100. We have like 7 of the 8 largest bank. And in that, we have any kind of bank, any kind of level in the digital transformation approach. The quadrant of Gartner, we are always as leader in that with the agile tools. But even in the enterprise service management space, this is the Forrester, we are starting to be known. This is a space more traditionally linked to other kind of vendors that have been there since many years, that have a different approach. And so we are little by little moving in that space, bringing something new, which is our agile background. This is a different one, Enterprise Service Group. It's a report where they really analyze the implementation the customer did with the tools and what they were able to achieve. And one interesting thing is what we call shift left, meaning if you have a ticket in your support or incident management platform, the sooner you can get to it, the less time you spend on it, the less costly resources are working on the ticket, the better it is, of course, because customer satisfaction because of cost. So if you can provide to the customer or the user everything he needs to answer his need by himself, by searching, and I come back to how we do that, the better, much the better. And even if you give to support teams the way to answer a ticket by themselves without escalating to level 2 and 3, the better. So this is something that at which we have been quite successful. And why? All right. And, there has been some. There we go. Hopefully it will stay there. Okay. So, and in what ways Atlassian is a kind of a little bit different company? Actually, it's quite different. Working in there and working in a customer-facing position as a solution engineer, I can see that it's very different from other companies in a lot of different way. First of all, the pricing is transparent, is online, and we don't discuss the pricing. That's a thing that seems obvious, but when you have the CEO of a large company that comes to you and say, okay, what? You don't discuss price, I'm going to go to Australia to speak with Mike and Scott, the two founders, and we will discuss about price. I say, well, you may do so, but you will see, nothing will change. So we have this approach. And the idea behind that is that we are not investing much in marketing and sales. The largest investment is on engineering. And if you compare the numbers with companies, still technological company like Box, Salesforce, or whatever, you see that where they have a spending of like 60% on sales and marketing, we are below 20%. And where we have a spending of 75 or that number on engineering, they are much lower. So it's a different idea. The idea is to provide good products that can be tested and tried easily, provide a transparent pricing, provide an online model where people can just go online, get the product, they like it, they put the credit card and they pay for it, instead of long sales cycles, negotiations, opaque pricing, and so on. So, and it's a model that is working quite well, because one of the major way of increasing our customer base is being happy customers. So customers that talk about Jira, business unit that started using Jira software and they like it, so they spread it around in the company. Of course, that has some problems too, because when I go to talk to enterprise customers, large customers, many times they don't even know how many Jira instances they have. So they think they have, like, they're starting to see, like I go and talk to the purchasing people, and they know, okay, we are using Atlassian, and we have 3 instances. No, you have 30 instances. They spread all over the globe. And so they ask us how many Atlassian tools they are actually using, because the model is from the bottom up. So people use it, it starts spreading in the company. And now, of course, when we are in the enterprise space, we start talking about consolidating instances, moving, for example, to data center, but bringing things together, establishing a framework, a governance framework, because everybody has been implementing Jira the way they want, with the workflow they want. And so now that you want to put some governance around it, you have different kind of problems. But in general, it's a good model. It's a model that works very well for us. So what's the challenge that we see in the IT space? Well, first of all, and I don't think I'm gonna teach you anything in that, but it's a space where we have seen a lot of disruptions, a lot of new companies, the Amazon, Airbnb, Netflix, Uber, that brought a different model. They make of technology their main competitive advantage. And so traditionally, IT was structured, the IT team was structured as an internal cost center. So IT traditionally sees the other business unit in the company as internal customers. And this model brought all that, all the contract model. So if they are internal customers, then I'm gonna put a contract between us and them. So that's what SLA stands for and all this kind of thing. So that you make sure that if you have this contracting model, you can be successful. However, those companies, they don't have this model. For them, technology is the main asset. It's not just the cost, it's the main competitive advantage. So that's where all the funding goes, that's where all the strategy goes. And it's much more successful. We have seen more traditional companies like ING, for example. ING is a good case. They were coming from a completely different traditional banking, different background, and they massively invested in agility and in a DevOps, for example, transformation. And they are now very competitive in that space. So, but all this changing put some pressure on the IT teams, and this pressure that we can identify as the fact that, first of all, as I was saying, the users are not just customers, internal customers, but you need really to provide a service that they like, a service that they can use easily. Traditionally, a user, if you have a UI to enter a ticket with a lot of data, and he had to do that way. If he didn't do that way, he could, just do something else. But little by little, what users start to do, they started to use shadow IT, other tools, or being dissatisfied with IT. And we don't want that. And so internal IT teams need to follow a little bit in the lines of companies like Amazon that came up with these terms, customer obsession. Customer obsession is, it's working for them. And so that's a transformation that is putting a lot of pressure on the teams. Of course, modernization, digital transformation, migration to cloud services, that's a particularly important one. Every time that I talk to a customer, medium or large customer, they have a migration to public cloud initiative going. And so that's a thing that we are seeing more and more. Of course, as Atlassian, we are into that. We are, putting more and more stress in the cloud offering, but also, for example, with the data center offering and the fact that we have quick start templates to go to AWS or Azure. That's a very important thing because we are seeing that all the time with our customers. So, and some teams, some companies are adapting very quickly to that. Some companies are just being passive and just leaving the stress of the change and the fact that they are investing all their time just to keeping up, and they feel that they are not able to. Just hope that will come back. There we go. All right. And particularly about the skills. There are skills, if you look into the market, there are skills that are very, very rare to find. So if companies that are looking, for example, for DevOps engineers, it's very, very difficult to find. I see it because, for example, since I gave some talk on DevOps in conference and so I'm a little bit in that space, and so you're being contacted all the time, but companies want a DevOps engineer, and so it's difficult to find. They are very rare, and everybody is telling those companies, you need to change in this direction. You need to do that, because we have seen what agile can do for developer teams. They are being able to have a quicker development time, bring features to the market in a much quicker way, have a shorter feedback cycle, feedback loop with the customer. So being able to bring all the needs and the wants from the customer more into the development cycle. And now that agile teams are doing much better, Now the problem is downstreams to the operations team. All this software that is being made, produced in a better way and a quicker way, now we need to bring it to production, because that's where the value, the business value is coming from. And that's where DevOps is really adding something, but that's also adding some stress. There is a very interesting report about DevOps, which is now DORA reports, the DevOps reports that they did that for 4 years. The last one in 2018. They categorized the companies around 4 metrics, which is the frequency of deployment in production, which is the lead time from code committed, code deployed in production, so the speed at which they are able to push new features in production. And then the mean time to resolution, so the time that takes to restore a service once you have an incident, and the percentage of release that they need to roll back because there is a problem in production. So there are 4 metrics, and they categorize companies around that. And with that, they found a leader pack, actually an outsider pack where you have the AWS, Netflix, and the big ones. And then you have a leader pack and a medium and a followers pack, which brought to the business point of view, that means competitive advantage, that means market share, that means customer fidelity, because if at the point where we are, it's very easy for customers to move from one tool to the other if they don't find what they need. So you really need to bring something better, and you need it to do quickly. And so companies that are not investing in that space, that are really staying in a traditional way, they are starting to be left behind, at least. That's what we see. Then, of course, it depends on what customer you talk and what sector they are, but generally that's what we see. So going back to the ITSM space, talking with our customers, we try to figure out what are the main challenges they see, because we wanted to provide something to do things other ways. And one is the fact that those tools are kind of monolithic. They come with a way of doing things, and then your team needs to adapt to that, because they think that that's the way that things have been done up to now. Even companies that came more recently and came to as a SaaS company, SaaS product, but the approach is the same. It's very traditional, and now it's lived as a challenge. That's also another problem, is the lack of visibility. So the fact that you have operation team and development team, and there is a wall in the middle. If you have like an incident or a problem management initiative, like you need a bug fix, you don't have this communication between the operation team and development team, so that you can really have this synergy and have them working together effectively. And once again, no coordination with developers. And the fact that the operations team are spending so much time just to try to solve the tickets, to solve all the incidents, that they don't have time to absorb the technical debt. They don't have time to do any innovation, to analyze themselves, see how they were working, what are the challenges we have, how can we do better. You need time to do that. You need the resources. And if you just have the pressure of incidents all the time, that doesn't work. And also cost. Because you are not able to shift left, you systematically have every ticket escalated to several levels. It takes time and it's costly. So those, at the first analysis, that those are the main challenge that our customer report. So what do we do? First of all, and this is really, every time I go and talk to a customer, the first thing that the customer wants to talk about is the tool. You know, what tool and how, what the technology, what the problems, what features. And actually, what we have seen, if we just step back a little bit, that many times it's not just a question about the tool. And in fact, it's more than that. We've seen in the agility at scale, because we are much in that space too, in the DevOps transformation, and even for ITSM, every initiative that focuses mainly on the tool is not going to work. It's deemed to failure. So we think that, first of all, is the culture, then you have the process, and then you have the tool. And when I say culture, it's a broad discussion. So, for example, if you are talking about innovation, and you want a tool that helps teams bring innovation, and actually, until you have the culture that trying things, the way of bringing innovation is being able to try things, being able to make experiments, being able to fail. You make experiments, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So you have the system in place, you have the culture where the teams can make experiments, they can fail. Internally at Atlassian, we say if you never fail, because you are not trying hard enough, most likely. So you have this culture where you can fail, you can make experiments, and that's not a question of tool or a process. It's really a question of a culture. You have this culture where we don't find, like we have an incident in production, when you have the post-incident review, many times it's question of finding who did the wrong thing. If you have this kind of approach, trying to find the head to chop off, that's not gonna bring some improvement. First of all, it's false, because many times the problem is not really what was the wrong thing that was done, but why that person was allowed to do that. Why I don't have a system that can recover from the failure? Why I don't have a monitor in place that can tell me right away when there is a failure so that I can restore it before the users bring it to me? So it's not a question of the person, it's a question of the system that I have in place that needs to evolve. If I keep focusing on the person or on the error, I'm not gonna evolve. So that's what we mean by culture. Another way of seeing that, you can see as a nutritional pyramid, foundation and behavior, that's what we think, that's what we do, and how we work. So that's all the culture aspect. And they are all important. I mean, we sell the tool, we are up there, and we are saying the tools are not enough, you don't need to focus on the tool, but that's what we see. And not only we see with our customers, that's what we see with us internally as a company, because we are one of those companies that were born with technology, that were successful with technology, and now we have the same problem. We have the problem of how to scale agility. We have the problem of projector. There we go. So we are going through this, and that's also the fruit of our learning as well. So what do we propose? Now I've been talking a lot, but well, first of all, the tools. So mainly Jira Service Desk, Confluence, that's where we have our knowledge base and can integrate very well with Jira Service Desk. But also, those are newer ones. Status Page, I don't know if you are, how many of you know about Status Page? Know what it is? Okay, somebody knows. So Status Page is a SaaS offering, so in our cloud, that allows you to have transparent communication with users, with customers, about the health of your system. So, for example, if you have an incident, you identify an incident, you have a problem, you can publish on a status page where you will have the list of the services you provide, and then you can push notification about, like, we have a problem, we identified, we are working on it, we solve it. So instead of having people coming on your service desk and creating tickets, and many times the same ticket about the same problem, they can go there and they have the status, they can subscribe to updates, and so they are always up to date on what's going on. You can even insert the banner about status page on your Jira Service Desk, so when people go to create a ticket, they say, oh, we know already about this incident. And so you avoid piling up the same ticket many times. OpsGenie, as I was telling before, it's a very recent acquisition, and it's a little bit, if you know Xmatter, that's a similar application. So basically, it stays between the monitoring and the service desk. So you have your monitoring system that will, get the alerts about problems in your environment. And then they goes to Ops Genie, where you can orchestrate all these alerts. First of all, for example, if you have 25 times the same alert, it will become just one to avoid making tickets that you don't need. You can dispatch the alert to your support teams according to their availability, different teams. You can notify them through different channels, Slack channels, paging, tickets, whatever. You can coordinate information. Ops Genie will create Jira Service Desk ticket, but you can also create Jira Service Desk ticket and then notify Ops Genie. But Ops Genie will make sure that everything stays in sync. It will notify a Slack channel or another chat tool that you may have. So it is really is the tool meant to make the operations team more effective when dealing with incidents. We are still in the process of it's already integrated with Jira Service Desk, but that will get better over the time. So empower team, once again, that's really team that can work the way they find better. There is a tons of research on that. For example, Netflix has been publishing a lot of things about the fact that teams that can work the way they find more effective, and the way they find more effective is what the people decide on the team. So at Netflix, for example, they go up to the point where people can even decide what technological stack they want. They need to implement a microservice. They say, we provide 2-3 stack. You want to use your own, go for it. But you support it from A to Z. So you are going to support it even in production. You want to use the stack that we support, you have some help. But you find that it's more useful, something that go ahead, do it. So that's an extreme, that's Netflix. But the idea is really to give the team that power. If you think the same concept in Jira would be, you need a particular workflow, you can have it. Of course, when you scale up, you start to have hundreds of different workflows. You need to think a little bit about making more sense of it. But in general, yes, give the people what they need. Of course, the focus on the customer, and I will show a little bit how that looks like in Jira Service Desk, for example, and the fact of bringing value. One of the problems that we've seen, I spoke earlier about the fact that IT sees traditionally other business units as internal customers, and so put contracts on it. How that materializes the fact, for example, that you have a freeze on the production. You cannot deploy over long periods over the holidays, for example, or you cannot touch the production system from Thursday afternoon until Monday morning. So all this, or for example, before moving an application to production, you need to go through a complex process and checklist and everything else. All this makes sense if the operation teams need to preserve themselves from a contract. They don't want somebody say, okay, you don't do your job, it's not stable, you say that you were going to do this, now you are not doing. So they put the contract in place so that they can save their life. But it's not a model that is very effective from the business values point of view, because it slows everything down. Now you have developer teams that are working in Scrum, they are very effective, but then you have a wall, and so it's not working. And so if you really want to be innovative, if you really want to be competitive, that's where you have to bring the teams together. You have to align around value. So even the operations team can make errors, but we built the system so that if we make an error, it will restore itself pretty quickly. So it's a different approach. And if you put that together with the cloud approach, so you don't build applications that are meant to live forever, you build applications that if they crash, you can rebuild it with a click. So you have the configuration management, you have the infrastructure with Docker, Kubernetes, whatever you want, that if something goes wrong, you redeploy your thing from scratch. And you have the process, you have the configuration, you have everything so that you can redo it exactly the way it should be done. So you plan for failure if you want. You plan and you build things so that with that in mind, that things may fail, but you are already set for recover from that. Jira Service Desk. So I was talking about customer centricity and the fact that we want to shift left. That's the search bar. So that's a customer portal, first of all. So you provide to user an easy to use interface, streamlined interface. I think that if they need to create a ticket, they can do it easily. They don't have like 50 fields to fill in, but you can still do that if you want, but it's not what we recommend. And then the user can search, and there is a machine learning algorithm that will try to match the best knowledge base article from Confluence. Then people can rate, is it useful or not? So you can improve as you go along, having more knowledge-based articles, more relevant knowledge-based articles. You can publish a service catalog so that people can find easily what they need. And on the agent's view, you still have this knowledge-based connection so that, for example, when I need to work on a ticket, the system will provide suggestions about troubleshooting guides, how-to guides from my knowledge base in Confluence so that I can find the answer more easily, more quickly, without escalating the ticket. If I need to talk with somebody, I need to have the advice on somebody else, I can just mention somebody and he will be notified, he can come into the discussion, he will back and forth, and everything will stay there. You won't have like emails on one side, chat on the other side, everything stays in one place. You have all the history of the ticket, you can add watchers. So it's a model that works pretty well. On top of that, you can create queues. So queues are basically buckets where you have your tickets, and those buckets are based on a GQL, Jira Query Language. So you can filter tickets by any attribute. So you can really organize the things the way you want. If you want people to look at some tickets first, the one that where, for example, the SLA is about to expire, and then organized by every team. So you can really make sure that the good people have the right attention on the ticket that you need to treat before, for example. So all this together, knowledge base, collaboration, queues, SLA, they really help people to be more effective. And another aspect is the fact that you can automate very easily. It's just configuration up to some level, of course. Then if you want to go beyond that level, you can use plugins like, for example, Script Runner to script some things, but you can do a lot of things already just by configurations. So reacting any change on the ticket, something changed, I want to do something. You can even push with the webhooks, some REST calls to external system. So for example, I have a change request, I approve the change, and then the video disappears. Come on. There you go. I approve the change, and then I push the notification to AWS Code Deploy, for example, to deploy my new component. So I can interact with external systems if I want to. And I was talking before about a challenge in a traditional system in the sense of lack of coordination, of a unified view between developers and operations team. That's an example. I have a problem in my production environment. I identify the problem, I need a bug fix. From Jira Service Desk, I can create a linked ticket. So for example, a user story, a bug fix in my backlog, developer backlog. And then I can keep the two coordinated. So I can say, for example, if the status changes on the Jira software side, you can add a comment on the ticket on the Jira Service Desk. So for example, they implemented the bug fix, you can add the comments, the bug fix is ready, check it, and deploy in production if you want. So I can really keep this coordination between the two, and that's just configuration. There is no coding that is needed for that. And then, of course, I can extend with all the marketplace and stuff. How I'm doing on time? Okay, good. And the marketplace, I mean, you really have a lot of things. On Jira Service Desk side, one of the main one that is being used by our particularly large customer, but not only, is the CMDB by Insight, and somebody will come and talk about that. So that's very, but also on the software side, with the tempo tools and big picture, there is really a lot of way of extending. And compared to more traditional vendors, where you have a big application and everything inside, they have any kind of functionality, so very good application. But then when we talk with our enterprise customer, and they use like 50% of all that, but they pay the whole thing. So we came with a different model where we put into the application what we thought was the most user feature, the one that the customer needed the most, and then you can extend, and then you can pay for what you use, actually. So the idea is going from left to right. So more a traditional model where it's siloed, you need development, it takes long time to implement a process, and many times the challenge for us is once this more monolithic big application get in, and they often have a model that is not bottom up like Atlassian, it's more top down. So they have been purchased by the global purchase or by the global IT, and then it's been implemented, and the process took 5 years. And people are not that happy because they can't really work their way. The operations team is seeing what the developer team is doing with Jira software and would like to work in the same way. That's a very typical situation. They see what they do. They would like to do the same thing, being free to organize and to work, being more effective, working more agile, but they can't because there's this solution that has been decided. And so little by little, one Jira service deck there, one another there, and they start to change, but it's a complex process. But anyway, the model is different, so configuration, low code instead of big development, short projects. We're talking about an implementation project about weeks. It's not about years or so. And whereas I know many IT projects that went on for years and they never finished. So different story. Success stories. And as I was saying, we actually, at the beginning I talked a little bit about that. In terms of penetration, if you talk about Jira, it's any large customers I go to, they already have it. So the penetration is very high. However, we are quite conservative about what we say with our customers. So the customer that you will see here are customers that actually agreed about talking about them. So there are many that we don't talk about, but you can find on Atlassian.com website customer references. So the Daily Telegraph is #1 media in the UK through their newspaper and mobile app and the website. And they outsourced, in the past, they outsourced the IT. And then they found that it didn't work. Wonder why. But it was slow, the quality was bad, so they decided to bring it back within the company. And in order to do that, they had a very short time frame. They had a couple of months. To do that, they need to choose 3 months. To choose the tools, select the tools, and then implement the project. And they selected Jira Service Desk. They were able to implement the project. And it was quite successful. So they were able to shorten the time to process of all the tickets by 55%. They were able to have a very high NPS, Net Promoter Score. So the evaluation of the service from the users came up to 140%. So it was an absolute success. And then they started to use Jira Service Desk not just for the IT teams, but for other teams. So now, for example, the HR teams, the marketing teams started using that because it's been thought primarily for IT teams, but it can be used by any team actually that needs to have a service desk. I guess that one everybody knows about Twitter. Surprisingly, when we started working with them, they had a support model where they treated everything by email. And then the company grew 3 times in 2 years. And so they had thousands and thousands of these email, and they were not able, of course, to scale with email. So they wanted to implement something different. They implemented the customer portal. So they went down from 95% of the support requests going through email to less than 15%. And so that's what what they wanted, and the adoption rate is more than 80%. So more than 80% of the people that were actually using on a day-to-day basis the customer portal. So that works very well for them. And DHI, so DHI is, they have different job boards for people to find a job. And the most well-known one is dice.com, and I'd like to have them speak about it instead of me speaking all the time.
ServiceNow is a very capable tool, but for a mid-sized business, the feature, the overhead, the process that it pushed us through, we weren't working as nimbly as we thought we could, and frankly, cost. I mean, when you looked at $250,000 solution compared to something that is 25% of that, it was an easy choice. Jira Service Desk has allowed us to reduce P1s and P2s major incidents by 70% in the last 3 years due to the transparency and collaboration of the entire technology team working off of one platform.
In the beginning, customer support department had a huge 3-ring binder with all the documentation, and every new support rep that would come on, we would hand this big, thick binder to them and say, "This is everything you need to know." What we've noticed is that doesn't exist anymore. There's no more creating of this documentation in paper form. It's been loaded all into Confluence, and now it's all searchable and easy for them to use.
Anyone who wants to grow their business that's in the technology space needs an open platform that's agile, flexible, cost-effective, easy to use, and allows any generation to be involved and collaborate to grow a business.
That was short enough. And as I was saying, there are many others. So you can go to our website if you want. So that ends my presentation. If there are some questions, I don't know, do we have some more time for some questions? Or I will also be around during the day, so do not hesitate to step by and have a chat or keep the conversation going.
Yes. So I must first talk on my own mic.
So, I'm online now. So, time for questions. I have a microphone here because we're also recording. So, if anybody has a question from the audience side, then let me know and I'll probably try to throw it or bring it to you. There is reaction. I'll bring the microphone to you.
Hello. Thanks for the presentation. Quick question, maybe it's too early to say, but ITIL 4 and tools, does it change anything?
Actually ITIL 4 will bring some change, and some of that change goes in the good direction, in the sense of being a little bit more agility, and ITIL brings a lot of value in terms of a set of good practices, and so we do implement part of it. For the moment, there is not going to be anything. We are publishing some resources of how you implement ITIL 4 with our tools, with Jira Service Desk particularly. There is no new features that will come out on that occasion, at least at the moment that I know of. But it's for us, from what we have seen, it goes in the good direction. It goes in the direction of being more effective, by being more agile, by less blocked on the process set in stones, bringing more this adaptability of the framework, even keeping all the good practices that are a good value of ITIL. Yeah. So even ITIL, our approach as Atlassian is to implement 4 main processes: incident management, a service request, problem management, and knowledge management. And then you can go beyond with using add-ons, for example, the configuration management of Insight. And so, yeah.
Any more wishes for microphone and question? Then I have one comment. It's very interesting to hear on this side the question of a move to the left, because there is also a person who is going around and pushing the idea of pushing left, which is also kind of related to software development. Does anybody know where the pushing left is used? No idea? It's in the security side. And it's used namely in because often the security questions in the software development have been kind of, we have it ready, let's do now the penetration testing. And from OWASP side, they have been pushing the question of making the security more on the left side or the start of the process. So I think seeing this is very interesting. I have kind of a meta question. You told that because you are going to have meetings here with users also tomorrow, that there was a bunch of interesting questions. Could you kind of summarize what are the things that Atlassian product users are asking from a visiting solution engineer, something that maybe highlights for Estonia or highlights for this year?
So a lot of those questions are about functionalities that they would like to see that are partially there, and so a question around, how can we do that even though the functionality is not really there? And many of those, for example, concern the being able to customize the customer portal even further, which is a thing that we are aware of, and there are some plugins that allow to go beyond what is already provided by default. But the idea, and I think it makes perfect sense, on saying customer portal is there for the customer. It's an easy-to-use interface. It needs to be a nice interface. It needs to fit into the look and feel and the way of working of the customer. So it needs to be very customizable. And we went sort of halfway. So there are things that you can't do. And so they need to go beyond that, and it makes perfect sense. Then there are questions around our strategy overall. Because we've made acquisition last year, we just made another acquisition 2 weeks ago of Agile Craft, so a tool that is really for agility at scale. So people are asking, what's your strategy? Where are you going? What is the global sense of how it makes sense? And it's very good questions. And I can talk around that in the sense that very shortly, we have different acts, different pillars, you might say, but all centered around the fact of we like to say we are the culture layer of many different applications. So you have the agility side, that's our historical background. And so we cover the agility up to some level with Jira Software and Portfolio for Jira a little bit. And now we are going beyond. Why? Because there is a lot of companies like us that were born with agility and grew to a size where they need something else. They need something to coordinate different teams, different projects, to give a roadmap, to give business alignment, and so on. So that's where Agile Craft fits. Another part is the IT space, where we saw a good opportunity, so we are investing more, we are going there, so Jira Service Desk, and then Ops Genie, then Status Page, so bringing the agility advantage in that space. To summarize them, but
okay, thank you. In the meanwhile, something from our audience, or we should thank him and move to the next presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, the people have voted, so please. To the switch over. We need to get the mic and connection here, and we have for each and every presenter an Estonian themed present, which is a ethno picnic tape. Oops, you are kind of That's the first time I've seen that happen, but okay. There must be. So, which one? You can pick yellow or blue. Okay, especially the ones who are starting have the possibility to pick their color.